All right, let's get started here. I'll let people in. I'm the administrator of this meeting, so you may see me adding people. It might take away from my attention, but I'm trying to keep my attention on y'all. One of you guys that have not been in the program, there's a couple guys in here I see. Why don't you just unmute your mics and tell us who you are and where you're from? Not all at once.
My name is Thaddeus, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh, wow. Stay safe over there.
I'm trying.
Okay, Thaddeus. And who else was? There was someone else I saw.
I'm Cody, and I'm from Boynton Beach, Florida.
Awesome. Very good. Well, we're recording this, so the guys that come in late, they'll be able to hopefully rewind if we get a good feed on it and watch what we miss. But we'll just start going here. I'm Joe West. I am I guess I'd be what would I be? I'm the originator of the Apprentice Academy. Me and Becky started this program a long time ago. I sought out Becky, our administrator, because she was associated with some other programs, and I just admired her, just sort of her passion for what it was that we were trying to do, my idea that she was very passionate about and joined in on and took ownership of. So we're a small audio production company, production and engineering program that really focuses on putting your hand to the plow and learning the skills by being immersed in them. So we are here today in my barn. The schedule of accounts for today will be that we will look around the barn here. We're going to show a little video that I have not released to the general public about how to get a hit-worthy vocal sound. That is a 4-minute video that also has a full half-hour tutorial. And if you want that full half-hour tutorial, we'll be able to get that to you. But we're going to do the little trailer for it, and it actually covers all the information very quickly, just not in detail. Let me admit this, gentlemen. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to talk, you get questions and answers for me, and questions and answers from some of the alumni who showed up here in force. So it's good to see them all. Like I said, we're small. We don't necessarily want to be big. We don't want to get to the point where we aren't able to be totally involved in your journey. So the goal here is that we really have a personal relationship, and we're really focused on getting the information comprehended and having you come out the other side of this program a competent engineer, producer, mixer, songwriting we deal with as well, because I'm also a songwriter and it's very much a part of my workflow. So depending on what your focus is, we really tailor the program to your experience. We all go through the same core curriculum, but we all come out the other side with a different experience because we're headed different places. So it is a 16-week program. We are certified by the state of Tennessee as a post-secondary education unit. You must be graduated from high school, and you must have transcripts to prove that, to be admitted into the program. And after the 16 weeks, you will be, there's a certification process that you will receive. But the real reward is the knowledge of learning how to dig in and have a solution for the passion that you have. That's our number one goal. The whole time during those 16 weeks, we'll teach you a bunch of principles that are sort of the cornerstones of how to be a great record producer and audio engineer. But along with that, we also are teaching you about how to set up some personal goals and how to interact in the industry to find, get, and keep work. I think all these guys that are on here that have taken the program will attest that is as much of a focus and a priority in regards to what we're teaching. Every time we're teaching a concept, we're also teaching how that applies into getting, keeping, and maintaining work. So that's the goal here, is that we're working engineers and producers and songwriters after this is all said and done. And that's what we really try to do. I'm going to show you around. We're lucky enough here to have a beautiful facility that we work out of. This is my personal private recording studio. It's called the West Barn. You may have seen it online, whether you've seen me in Waves videos or any of the endorsement stuff I do, or some of the tutorials that have been going out to some of my retail relationship partners. So you may have seen it before, but this is it. It was built in 2008 after I had written and produced and mixed a big hit, a 3-week #1 for Jimmy Wayne. And Jimmy Wayne, the artist, will tell you can see the ceiling here, he will tell you that this is his barn because he paid for it with the royalties from that record. I've been lucky enough, we all want to build a studio or what we consider a home studio, and I've been lucky enough to have built this place. It is an awesome recording space, both for acoustic recording and for the technology, building in the box, as well as, all the outboards that we have. It is a 40 by 60 foot timber frame barn. Timber frame means it's held up by these big trusses, like old school. Let someone else in. It's a 40 by 60 foot timber frame barn with 30 foot ridge beam. So it's way up there, all wood. You can hear my voice reverbing in here because it's a big open space. I've been all over the world, lucky enough to have made records with people all over the planet. And I will tell you that I have not been in a room, regardless of how much money they spent on it, that sounds better than this barn. So I'm lucky to have had the ability to pay for it and to be able to work out of it. It's the ultimate home studio. We've got what's called a soft Carolina yellow pine in the ceiling, and you notice there's absolutely no sealant on it. It's all just like if you look inside of a guitar chamber, it's all unfinished. So all that soft decay comes back. You can hear my voice, how beautiful it is. We've got a lot of old barnwood around the place. You'll see it some there going into the bathroom. There's our kitchen back there. That's all made out of an old barn that sat on this site, an old pole barn. I'll show you this wall here where they have some of the gold records. All this wood that you see is from that old tobacco barn. It was a multi-purpose barn. They used it a lot. No audio from Steve is saying there's no audio. Maybe go out of the meeting room again, Steve, and join back in. If somebody could text that to him if you can't hear me. You might want to let him know that his microphone is muted if that's what he's hearing. But if you look around, all this wood came out of that 100-year-old pole barn that was here. And it was about to fall down, but we repurposed all of it. So it's all old oak and poplar and a lot of, not chestnut, what is that, walnut. It's a lot of walnut. And it's a beautiful surface when audio goes off of it. It comes back very coarse and dark. We've got these iso booths over here. What we decided to do is to go the opposite way. Every recording studio I'd made records in for years had the control room, which we have, look here in the middle of our room. We've got control room. That's where all the mixing happens. That's where all the recording happens. So most studios have it in a control room, and then they have all these iso booths around the rest of the studio where they record things in a controlled situation. I made a record with Daniel Lanois, who was U2's producer and Emmylou Harris's producer, and Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno, big techno guy from Europe. Those guys use an open-air control room, and once I started making records like that, I couldn't go back. It was just a beautiful experience. So that's what we did here. We've got this giant space here, right? Look at all the ton of volume, meaning size in the room, open space, right? 40 by 60 foot. And then we decided to have some control and isolation by putting some booths in. And these booths are, I'm trying to get back far enough that you can see them. These are like every studio in the world, high-tech studio. They're all floated. There's an air gap between the two rooms. There's two rooms isolated, one inner room, one outer room. The inside ceiling hangs from the outside ceiling by springs, tension to a specific amount. Both identical. We record drums in them, acoustic guitars. We'll end up sort of, in this room, we can configure it. I've had 12 people recording in here once live, going all down at the same time. So it's very accommodating. We also put some amps out onto the porch, which my neighbors seem to love. They text us and ask us to have the guitar player play Freebird or some lick that they know. So it's a really beautiful, ideal space. It's what I wanted as my personal space to be able to make records. When we make records here, you're totally unseparated from the energy. Everything that is good in the room, you are right there in the middle of it. It's like you and your best friend sitting, programming, and being right there on the couch next to one another. Someone playing a guitar and right next to a vocalist. There is a synergy that happens in this space. It just so happens that it's fantastic for education as well. Unintended consequence. So we get, everybody gathered around here. Like I said, we have small classes. We try to have less than 10 people in every class. So we're right there. Your hands are literally right on everything. If you want to see something, you come right up and put your eyeballs on it. We do have a distance program as well, which Jeff took from Chicago, and we've got a really high-res system. And if results are any indication, I was blown away at how great the distance program was, because we were able to get that detail across. I was a little bit worried that we wouldn't be able to get the content and have that person feel. But I think Trey Marshall from Fort Worth, who isn't with us today, he took the program distance as well, and so did Jeff. And both of those guys are some of the most talented graduates we have. So if that's any indication, I really think, and maybe Jeff could speak to it later, I really feel like the distance program is way more effective than I had thought. I had worried that we maybe wouldn't be able to get that across. So I was very happy with the distance program. But we are here, and we've got, the goal is to get your hands on things, to teach you process and consequence. I was just meeting with somebody who was interested in the school last night. He came over to the barn, and we hung out. And he was telling me that he was, where was I going with this? See, that's what happens with you whenever you're 50 years old.
Distance learning.
But it will come back to me. But so we've got our center section here. This is our console. Pro Tools. We're running on Pro Tools. We run a lot of different programs. A lot of our graduates who work with the program and that we scale in for counseling and tutoring and whatnot, they have all kinds of editors, dolls represented from Project One to Logic Audio, you name it. Ron's proficient in just about all those. So we deal with all, but we really want to make sure that we have Pro Tools under our belt. That's the center of the audio world, the music world. If you're going to be doing anything outside of your bedroom or outside of your house and trying to interface with other people, you have to know Pro Tools. So you'll leave here with a comprehension and a real proficiency in Pro Tools. And that translates to a lot of other editors too, the logic behind it. I wanted to show you over here, we've got a B-rig in here. This is a real analog tape machine, which is super slick. We got this B-rig over here, and this is, I'm going to turn my camera around. We do a podcast out of here, and we also have a B-rig where we do a lot of post-production and audio. So we've got a control surface here that we do a lot of mixing on. And this is a new addition this last year. We do the podcast from the sessions from the West Barn, or from the West Barn podcast, which is you should check it out. It's everywhere, everywhere that podcasts are available. But we shoot that here live with audio and video. So this rig now is currently configured to do that podcast, but we do vocal tuning over here. We do mixing over here. It's a whole separate production facility that allows us to scale what we're doing and get you on other gear so that you just have a comprehension of how audio flows. And I'm remembering now what I forgot, which was I was telling him, YouTube has changed my life in the way that I learn. It's like the entire Library of Congress plus a metric ton of personal tutorials. So it's the ultimate place to go. I learn just about anything I want to learn, I can learn on YouTube. But what you can't learn on YouTube is a philosophy. When you take these audio, when you sit in on an audio class or watch somebody do a tutorial, you're getting one sliver in time of how they're treating one thing. It's crucial coming up that you find a mentor. If you don't do it with us, you should do it with someone else. Find a mentor so you can learn how to see the world of audio, your philosophy, your worldview of audio. So I was telling this young guy yesterday, you know, it's the equivalent if somebody came from outer space and was on Earth, you'd have to explain to them what rain was and what it does. If you were just on Earth and all of a sudden water started pouring out of the sky, you would think it was completely strange. To us, we understand it. You know, so there's the law of gravity. There's the reality that if you go underwater, you're going to have issues if you have to breathe. So there's all these rules that we have that we don't even think about. But we need to have those also whenever we're making records. When we're dealing with technology, what our perception of, what we believe to be true, every mix that we do or song that we create is an illusion, a sleight of hand that we're doing like a magician. So we have to make sure that we know how to paint that soundscape. We know what is allowable, what isn't allowable. I can remember with Jeff from Chicago, I would have this conversation with him, and I would say his mix sounded great, but his vocal had a low end in it that was competing with some of the low end in the track. So I did no longer believe the reality of his low end. So there is a concept of how you need to see the world of audio that you just can't get from YouTube. Our program our goal is to take you and put you in a position where you can learn and understand how to see the world of audio and then put your indelible fingerprint on it so that whenever it's filtered through you, it's not anything like I do. So, and I, of course, if you don't know, I'm an audio engineer and producer and songwriter. What else in? I have been in the business for 30 years. I have produced hit records. I've mixed hit records in the hundreds of millions of, consumed. I've written 3 #1 songs on Billboard. I've had a very long, proficient career at doing a lot of things because I'm a person that's continually interested. I have a curious personality, and I've been able to take that to a high level where I'm not even a mastering engineer, but I've mastered a ton of records that are big records. So my goal, as always, is to let you guys know that I want you to be successful, but I can't make you successful. I can give you the holy grail of information. My goal, if you've ever seen those charts online where they say, me, my goal, and then they show all these like mess of squiggly lines, it's not a straight line. My job is to straighten out those lines, try to connect you with some passion that you already have, and give you the most direct way to solving and getting to a place that you want to be. So you don't have to wander around in the darkness over and over again, banging your head against the wall, making the same mistakes. So, but I will tell you that I can do that, but I need you to be passionate too. We were looking for folks that show up every day with a fire, that have something they're chasing down, and we want to help them chase it down. But the only way you become successful, it's not like going to work or going to school and becoming a CPA and graduating and then going to work as a certified public accountant. It's not like that in the music business. People won't tell you that. But we want to give you the tools that you can go out and be successful on your own. But that fire has to come from you. So that's my mission statement. That's my call. Any questions as of right now? I know I'm rambling on. Anyone? Bueller? Okay. Why don't we go on up? We're going to play this video here of how to get a hit-worthy vocal sound. Keep in mind, this is a 4-minute version. I have a 30-minute version. This was never released because we're still waiting on some other things to release it. But so you can't find this anywhere. We're going to watch the 4-minute version, and if you guys want to get the 30-minute full lesson, we'll just reach out to Becky, and she'll get you a link to the full version as well. But let's go ahead and play that, Becky. Hi, I'm Joe West for Apprentice Academy, and this is First 5 Things. Today on First 5 Things, we're going to be working on how to get a hit-worthy vocal sound. Number 1, listen. Resist the urge to put your stock EQs, compressors, and reverbs on. Just bring the fader up and get the heart and soul of the mix up, just the main instruments, and listen a couple times through. Learn what the song wants to say, where the opportunities are. This vocal up. You'll start to think of directions you might want to go. You might want to say, hey, this vocal needs to be silkier, it needs to be aggressive, or it needs to have this attribute. You'll have a ton more direction and vision for where this thing is headed, what it is that it could be. And it will change the outcome of the song. That's important. We want the song to win. Number 2, compress. Every record I've ever mixed, regardless of how it was tracked, always has a compressor on the vocal. I don't really look at compression as a way of limiting dynamic range. I use it more to shape the vocal. I'm gonna go to a blue stripe on it. And I don't want it to be too pumpy and aggressive. I want to make it a little bit more silky. Sounds pretty good. I'll probably chase this with a limiter. The limiter is 10-to-1 and over. Compression is 10-to-1 and below. It's gonna touch the top. Watch this gain reduction. I feel really good. We've listened through this almost one time now, and it's starting to feel like a vocal. Number 3, EQ. What I use EQ for primarily is a little bit of fun, like putting a little bit of high end on a vocal, or putting a little bit of grit in a vocal around 8K, or maybe even a little bit of lower meat in it. So it would be mostly for the fun factor, and almost always in a positive way, meaning cranking a little bit of gain. Let's see what this sounds like. Notice they're all positive. I'm not doing much deductive EQing. If I had a problem like that, I would just want to do it maybe with a compressor, frequency selectable compression, and just take an issue out deductively if it was a little muddy or if it was a little harsh. It's important to have it in this sequence. That limiter has to be at the end, just because you're boosting some things that might end up coming off a little bit too strong to the ear. Sounds great. Number 4, effects. Reverbs, delays, modulations. I'll try to find out, going back to that first listen, what this song wants to be. If it's organic, I'll be looking at plates or chambers. The kind of effects you wouldn't even notice were on unless you turned them off. And I just keep edging them in till you barely hear them. Let's call it the plate. It's the Abbey Road plate from Waves. All right, it needs to be darkened up a little bit. Roll that high end off. A little bit of pre-delay. Listen to that ring, that's nice. Beautiful reverb. Let's check out what might happen with a little bit of pitch shift in the chorus.
So go on and find.
Just want to thicken it.
You're never gonna
Dry.
see me break on down.
A little bit of DSP.
Because my name on night.
Nice, subliminal. Serves everything that vocal wants. Number 5 is level. That's the fader level of your vocal, or where the level is relative to your mix. If you just find that right level, it really is like a master lock that whenever you get all these fader levels right, it seems to want to speak. I want those drums to really pump. I want the band to have energy. But I want to push that vocal loud so that people aren't ever wondering what he's saying or ever distracted from it. I try to set my compressors and EQs right and my limiters right so that whenever I do play that song back, it kind of mixes itself. This is where, if that level's set right in your mix on the fader here, then by the time it hits this master fader, this is where it really makes it sound like a record. And this is where the magic happens. That vocal is moving the threshold, and when it stops, the kick and snare is doing it. So there's this beautiful like transfer from the lead vocal to these donut holes where the music cues are, where it just seamlessly, the other thing comes up and sort of takes priority. I love that about a 2-bus compressor. And if your vocal level is set right, you can't lose. There you go. So that is like the super cut down version. Like I said, we have one that's probably a half an hour long that is a full lesson where we go into real detail. So if we felt like we were flying along there at 100 miles an hour, we were. But the internet is such that you have to have a shorter version of things. If you want that full version, reach out to Becky and we'll get it to you. I want to talk a little bit before we start. I'd like to have maybe a couple of the guys who went through the program speak to their experience. But part of what I do is I bring folks into my regular workload. So we have plenty of things that we do on a project-to-project basis in the program. So during those 16 weeks, you're going to be working on work that we have sort of stashed up, right? Creating and generating stuff for the school. But when I'm on a record, I bring the guys in the class onto the record. A couple of examples of that. Ron, I'm trying to think, Brian, Ron, and Pat Kicklighter, former graduates, all 3 worked on a record and got nominated for a Grammy with me in Sweden a year and a half ago. So those guys, and Ron did programming on that record, and the other guys did a bunch of work in the recording process of that record for an artist on BMG in Sweden, and those guys were able to be nominated. I went to Sweden and flew all the way to Sweden to not win a Grammy, but it was an honor to be nominated. But it was a fun experience. But I was glad to have those guys on that record with me. 2 other fellas that studied under me. I don't know if you can see it up here. There's a Grammy sitting right there. Let's see if I get my finger lined up. There it is. That Grammy I was lucky enough to be a part of. I produced and engineered and mixed a record that was a Grammy Award-winning record in 2017. And 2 of the guys that were studying under me actually got to go out to Los Angeles with me and collect those statues for themselves. So the goal is to bring you onto records, bring you onto projects, give you opportunity that's actually in my workflow. So we love to involve you into the real world of recording that has some consequence during the program as well. We don't put people in situations where they feel uncomfortable or where they're going to feel like they are ill-prepared. But if you feel competent and you feel prepared, we welcome you into that and we invite you onto those records. And even if you're not, we'll find a role for you on those records. So I'm admitting some more people. But I see on here, there's a record I recently did. I shot a little documentary. Ron Petrov did some programming on it. It's a great little piece of music. But that's all Ron's programming in that song there. And Chris Kapp is here. Chris was, we had done a record. They came in and shot a live concert for Casey James, who was one of the American Idol finalists. And after the season, he got signed to Warner Brothers and had a couple hits. He just did a live record here at the barn where they shot it, 5-camera shoot. They asked me to record it, so I did that. I'm friends with Casey James. And I had to go to Utah to film this documentary that Ron did some of the production on. And I said, hey, why don't you let my guys, I can't mix the record, why don't you let my guys shoot it out? And we'll take a song from it. They'll all do mixes of it. And if rather than just go to the Nashville main guys, the big rock stars in Nashville, why not just have one of my guys have a shot? If you don't like it, you can always hire one of those other guys. But if you do like it, maybe you'll use them. Chris Kapp, he ended up liking Chris's mix the most. And Chris went on to mix that entire record. So he got a pretty kick-ass credit. I mean, mixed engineer on a record like that is much more elevated than my role on it. I was just the engineer on it. So Chris had the opportunity and sees it, and he has done that over and over again. Ron's done the same thing. He's a part of a ton of great records coming out, and really one of the best hustlers I've ever met. Hustler in a good sense. He's just always working. Always on what he's doing. His game is tip-top level in regards to hustle. And Ron's one of the instructors here at the school now. But all the guys that go through the program, I couldn't be prouder to have them be a part of my workload and be a part of their stories, whether they just be breaking into a new opportunity for them or whether they're working on a big label thing that is actually a cool thing. I'm just excited to have them be a part of the workflow. So, Chris, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with Apprentice Academy and whatever it is you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe's really on point when he says that, put you in a real world recording environment. It's such a beautiful space. The room sounds great. I went to engineering school back in the 90s, and I'm dating myself. But I learned the book stuff. They gave me some tests, and they sent me out into the world. I never got a chance to really record in a recording studio or be an apprentice or to have that that room experience. So when I found out about Apprentice Academy and what Joe was doing, I jumped at the chance. I packed up my truck. I was living in Atlanta at the time. I was working for a television station, and I shot straight up to Nashville. And as soon as I got there, I think it was NAMM of 2017, 2018. It was during Summer NAMM. I got a chance to sit down with Joe, saw how excited he was about me being excited about recording and the music industry, and I said, "This is for me." And I was able to sit down and relearn Pro Tools after spending months on YouTube trying to figure out all the ins and outs. You can't really learn a software until you get a chance to just do it. You can learn it, but in a real recording environment, in a real recording studio, when you need to learn it, it's kind of lighting a fire under you and get the job done. And I couldn't be prouder of being a part of Apprentice Academy. I think it was an amazing experience. I got to meet a lot of really great people that really loved being part of Nashville and the music industry. And these are people that I still talk to today. It's been 2 years since I graduated. And I still talk to the people that I met at Apprentice Academy. I still work with some of these people, on a weekly, monthly, bi-monthly basis. And it was a really great experience for me. It was exactly what I was looking for when it came to being part of an apprenticeship and learning, the recording industry from the inside out, not just going to school for it. So, thank you, Joe.
Oh, thank you, bud. Chris, I don't know if you mind me sharing this, but Chris was at a point where he was thinking maybe I should leave. Maybe I should go to a different market. And we had coffee one day, and I said, "Hey, Chris, do me a favor. commit to not leaving. Why don't you commit to a date and make that date either 6 months away or a year away, and commit to making the decision on that date. Don't do anything. Just say, I'm going to decide whether I'll leave or stay. And if I remember correctly, that Casey James thing came through probably somewhere in that period where you were waiting, right?
Yep.
It's our goal to sort of help you find your place and to help you get through problems like that. It's like, you think about, like, if you had left, you wouldn't have had that opportunity. So it's an interesting thing. And it was the Casey James record was after you had graduated, but yet I still reached out to you guys, all you guys, to have that opportunity. So our goal is that we are the necessary part. We're your uncle that's the mechanic. And when you have a car, we want to help show you how to do that. Not in a way that you screw it up, a way that helps you learn the way the old timer did it so that you can streamline your process. So that's where our hearts are at with it. I was wondering if Jeff from Chicago, if you could talk a little bit about the distance program. You're muted. You there? You're still muted. We're not hearing you. All right, we'll come back to Jeff. I feel like a CNN reporter. Ron, would you talk a little bit about just sort of, I guess maybe a little bit about your role, because Ron's a big part of, he's really entrenched in hip-hop and urban music, as well as pop and country music. He just made a brilliant record with a really great artist here in town named Brent Shuttleworth that's just totally blowing everybody's doors off. But will you talk a little bit about your role and just sort of your perspective maybe coming up through the Apprentice Academy?
For sure. Just the first thing that's on my mind is just something that Chris and Joe were referencing is like, not only do you get into this ether of Joe's world just inevitably because you're around each other for a 4-month, 16-week period and then beyond, but inevitably what happens is, like, I'm looking on the screen and I'm seeing new faces on here, and I guarantee every one of these cats have a different skill set. And you sort of like, when you spend, it's like a college semester, right? It's even maybe a little longer than that. When you spend that amount of time with each other, you start to learn and have an appreciation for other people's talents. And inevitably, some people are going to be strong in one area. Other people are going to play, have an axe that they play. They're a great guitar player. They're great at this. We sort of learn off of each other and we stay in touch with each other through the future. Mike Young's working on projects that came via pipeline, via Joe to me, and Mike's doing work on those. So those kind of scenarios happen. But for me, it's been incredible. I mean, the whole thing about what Joe said at the beginning is really the juice. I mean, you can go on and learn about EQs and compressors, and you can do all that work that as far as going online, YouTube tutorials, whatever you can consume, and you can get really good content on there. You could also get some shit, you know what I mean? But the reality is that there's some kind of real beauty in watching how someone who's a Grammy Award winner handles a vocalist when they're in a session and they're nervous. Little things like those intricacies are the things that just can't be, they don't translate necessarily in the platform. And just negotiations, always letting people win, even if they're not at where you may want to get paid $500 a minute, but the reality is this person can only afford $100. How do you make that work? You know what I mean? Like all those little things that you probably never have thought about, or maybe you have and you never got an answer. That was a real, one big factor for me. For sure.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, Mike, you have Mike from Hopkinsville.
Yes, sir.
There you are. Your mic's on. You're at your studio here, I see, right?
Yep. sitting in it right now.
Why don't you talk a little bit? Mike graduated last January, right?
Yeah, the fall in December, basically. But yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your
Yeah, Apprentice Academy. I mean, it was an awesome experience. Of course, I'm an older person, which, you know, I was sort of hesitant about, you know, joining the, you know, Apprentice Academy, but you're never too old to follow your dream. You know, I've done this my whole life, but the thing about it is, like he was saying about the philosophy of mixing and anything, you know, to do with recording. You can learn all those techniques there at Apprentice Academy, and it's totally awesome and worth it. You know, like I say, and also the relationships that you build with the people that you meet in there, and just continue on. And it's more than just a technical school. It's more of a joining a club, because it feels that way at least. And you know, totally awesome.
So, and you know, also, don't feel like you have to have any experience. Our goal is to take you where you're at. You know, let's say you've never touched Pro Tools. You don't know what a mic pre is. You don't know what an interface is. You could start at complete zero, and we will get you. You're going to have, you know, you have to run a little harder. You know, do your reps, your repetitions. But we'll get you up to speed quickly, so that, you know, some of these guys actually had gone to school for this prior, you know, or had been working in the industry doing a bit of it. Don't think you have to come in with any sort of level of prowess. We're looking for good hearts and good souls that are excited about pursuing it. And we will meet you with exactly that passion that you bring in. So it is a doable thing. You can do it. And we will, we have a heart for getting you there. It's part of why we do it. Jeff, did you get your mic working? Or?
Am I on air yet?
You're on.
Right.
Yeah,
this is always the most challenging thing for me, is getting this to work. So this is a good segue into distance learning, and that's what I did, and it was a phenomenal experience. I thought that you know, just the quality of the stream and everything was great. I felt like I was there, and as much as I would have liked to have attended in person, I just wasn't able to. But I had contacted Joe after seeing some Waves videos, and I was just thrilled that he was available for mentoring. So I started working with Joe probably about 10 months before before I attended the academy. And the academy was great. I learned so much about mixing and really how to kind of formulate just a blueprint for moving forward with my mixing career. And it's just it's a continuous journey. And I had the pleasure of being able to go down to Nashville and hang out with Joe for a couple of days and work on a song. And that is a fantastic, fantastic room. Joe's a fabulous teacher. He's a great mentor, and he's encouraging, patient, and passionate. And he's the real deal.
I appreciate y'all saying that. I mean, it's sweet to hear it come back. You put all that out in the world, and you want to, there's a certain thing that you want to do and want to participate in, but when you hear it coming back from other people like that, I appreciate all you guys.
We're going to send you an invoice.
Yeah. It will remain unpaid. Well, we've talked enough at you guys. Is there anything that anyone here has questions for me or any of the guys that have attended the programs? Unmute your mic and go ahead and just introduce yourself and ask away.
I wanted to say real quick, I noticed the one guy from Boynton Beach. I definitely have a bunch of people I know in that area, and used to teach in that area. I have a special affinity, and even have some family and friends down Delray Beach, Pompano, Boynton Beach, that whole area. So what kind of music are you interested in?
Well, I don't know. I've kind of been playing with some jazz, but like for the most part, I do a School of Rock program, and I'm in the house band there, and I just play like out at gigs occasionally. Just like with a bunch of people, we'll switch off instruments. So I don't know. You get to meet like a really, or you get to meet like a lot of different musicians. There are a lot of experienced musicians, which is really cool.
That's real cool.
Yeah.
How did you hear about us?
My dad, I think, I don't know, he just has, I think, connections with you, and he just introduced me to your program, which is pretty cool.
Who's your dad?
David. Dave
Oh, McKean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and you jammed together when I was down there.
Right, yeah.
You were playing drums. I remember.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was me.
Yeah. That was a good time.
Bass or guitar, I can't remember.
Me or?
Yeah, you were on drums, right? You play drums.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in the upstairs little room you got there.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was a good time. And yeah, he just like introduced me to this program, and he sent me the video that led me here. So that's
great. Well, welcome. And if you can't think of a question now, you could reach out to Becky. What is it, Becky at admissions at apprenticeacademy.net, or Becky?
Admissions at apprenticeacademy.net or Becky at apprenticeacademy.net. Either one.
And if you guys want, I'm on a cell phone here, but somebody go ahead. My cell phone number is 615-517-7025. That's Joe West. My cell phone is 615-517-7025. It's in the notes for this, or it just came up on the chat. Feel free to text me or reach out to Becky. Who else is in the room that we haven't talked to? I'm only able to see one thing easily on this phone.
Hey, my name is Marcus. I'm from the DC area, and I went to SAE where I met Mr. Ron. And I actually have been down to the barn one time before. I think it was about a summer ago. And you had like some type of workshop or like a meet and greet type of situation at your house, and I got to meet you. And after graduating at SAE, I went back home to the DC area, and I worked with one of engineer friend for a quick second. His name was Candyman, and completely blew me away about how much stuff I was finally able to understand, but it really opened the door for how much stuff I didn't know. So I was like, I really need to get back, because he was moving at a ridiculous pace. Like, I'm talking about like super duper fast. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things was going completely over my head, but I knew enough to know that things were going way over my head. But, so I'm back in Nashville. Well, not Nashville, Murfreesboro. But now I'm back down here, where I was back in school for a quick second. And that didn't work out like before, all the coronavirus stuff and, quarantine and having a job and going 40 minutes to school every day. That wasn't a perfect storm. So then I had dropped out for a while, but now I'm finally starting to get back on my feet and back into the loop of things. I've been doing like kind of like a home studio situation just to get a little bit, my feet wet a little bit, but the thirst for knowledge has still been there. So.
Well, good. You mentioned that how fast someone was moving, and that really is like a muscle reflex. It's like 20 years later, you can jump on a 10-speed and you can go flying down the road. So we try to give you that muscle memory. The guys will tell you that we do. I tell them like, hey, mic up the drum kit. And just by miking up the drum kit, you have to display like a competency in mic technique, mic selection, routing, signal flow, session and software proficiency. And you don't just do it once, do it 10 times. So a lot of this is that, and it's a safe place to be put in a pressure cooker to do it, but not be at a point where you're going to be considered incompetent and fired from a job. So our goal is to put you guys through the reps so that it's second nature. And by the time they get through this program, it's slow and it's difficult because you're kind of learning a lot of things at once, but you start to say, okay, it's like riding that bike, where the brake is, whether to apply the front or rear brake and how to lean into a turn or lean away from a turn. These are all things that eventually by the end of those 16 weeks, our goal is that they're very imprinted in your muscle memory so that your brain is cleared up to be only creative. And you may think, let's say if you're in urban and hip hop, that stuff doesn't matter, but I guarantee you it does. It will change the way you make those records. Mm-hmm. Once you're a competent engineer, and we deal with a lot of stuff in the box and a lot of technology, but it's more a philosophy of proficiency And there's a ton to be learned. Like Ron had said, learning how to work with someone to get them comfortable enough to give you the best vocal that they're able to give you.
Yeah.
That's something you cannot read in a book. And we do our best. We talk to the artists we make records for, but I have never had any of them tell me not to have people here. So you get to sit in the room while I'm making a record with somebody and watch this guy, like for instance, a Swedish guy they don't have the TH sound in in the Swede language. So it's da. They say da. So we worked through getting vocals on this guy, and he just didn't even have he had never made that sound in his life. But we still needed him to sing great. So the guys got to sit there and engineer while I'm doing it. They got to sit there and be a part of seeing how that happens. That's how I learned as a kid coming up through the studio scene. That's the stuff that made me a great engineer. So we try to teach all the technical stuff, but we also try to give you an opportunity to learn how to be great by watching other people and then saying, I'm going to steal that and I'm going to make it my own. That's our goal. All right. Thank you for coming, brother. Anyone else?
I just like to say that I think the way that the course is laid out is fantastic. It's methodical. It's every week there's a new piece of information. I think it's just a great way to learn. It's not overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there, a ton of information, more than ever, and it can be overwhelming. And I think, Joe, you just corralled everything so that the learning process is really streamlined, but there's a ton of learning from you.
Thank you, brother. That's the goal. We're getting better at it too. We're years into this program, and I feel like the course, I'm starting to learn how to really drive those points home. But thank you. Anyone else? Any newbies in the room that want to introduce themselves if they have a question? And like I said, my number is in there, and you can reach out to Becky. Becky, you'll put your email in there as well, admissions@apprenticeacademy.net, or Becky with an I at apprenticeacademy.net. If you have any questions after the fact. But is there anyone else in the room that's new to the room that wants to say hello and just chime in, ask a question or anything? All right. It's good to see you all here. This is my first sort of virtual open house, and it makes me just wonder why I haven't done this before. It's such a cool little thing.
The same thing. We should do it again soon. It's sort of cool to hang out and.
We are going to do it again soon. So once again, there is that long-form video of how to get a hit-worthy vocal sound that goes into the full lesson, very detailed compared to the little 4-minute thing we watched. We're also, everybody by being in the room today is in a drawing to get a $1,500, any new students, to get a $1,500 scholarship to the program, which we're going to be pulling probably in the next 60 days. We'll let you guys know the details on that, but your names are automatically in that. There is any questions anybody has in regards to housing or logistics, we do our best to facilitate that. We've been successful with everybody who's come to the program, so don't hesitate to ask those questions to us via email. We'll try to help get you set up. There's some liability that we can't do it for you, but we can certainly make that a reality and help you find your way around here. I'm going to give you one last chance if anybody has a question before we end this meeting.
Yeah, I just want to say to the new guys that are thinking about coming in, this is really not a school. It really is an apprenticeship. And if you really want to get your audio engineering skills from good to great, this is probably the best way to do it. The one-on-one with Joe is it's just amazing. So think about that.
Awesome, guys. We appreciate y'all. Thank you for coming. We're going to wrap it up. Remember, you have all those points of contact for us. Don't hesitate. We'll follow up. We'll try to follow up with each of you that were in the room. If somebody got in the room by not by getting a link that maybe if they didn't go to the forum and give us your email and whatnot, please go ahead and go to our tour page and register after the fact. If we don't already have your email, we'd love to be able to reach out to you, include you in on some of the things that are going on, as well as answer any questions, but just get you in our database so we know that we've touched with you guys point to point.
I'll put it in there, Joe.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you either at the next open house or we'll talk to you about maybe attending in the fall. We'd love to see you there. When does it start, Becky? August
24th.
August 24th, and it wraps before the New Year, somewhere mid-December.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been a blast hanging with you.
Good to see everybody.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks.
Signing off.
Think I tried to murder